Chris Farr, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. It's a pleasure to take a call on the second reading of this Telecommunications Development Levy Amendment Bill. Mr Speaker, there are a number of questions which we will also ask in the committee stage that we have of the government. The first one I'll put to the Minister, and that is to why in her first reading speech she said, and I quote, "The industry will not need to put up their prices or explain to customers why their bill is changing," for then, less than an hour later, Spark to put out a press release saying, and I quote, "Now that the government has confirmed the levy will continue rather than reduce as originally legislated for, it has put upward pressure on future costs, and we will have to pass that cost through to our broadband and on-account mobile customers." So less than an hour after the Minister saying this will have no effect on consumers, nothing will change. Spark says, well, yes it will, because we're going to make the consumers pay. Now, regardless of who is at fault, either the Minister's wrong or Spark is playing silly buggers with this, someone is going to pay. And it looks like, Mr Speaker, it's going to be everyone who has a broadband account with Spark at this stage, and potentially more, because we haven't heard from many other telcos at the moment. So, Mr Speaker, it further emphasises our point that this is a new tax. Further to that, Mr Speaker, in the regulatory impact statement put out by MB on this bill, point 50 talks about the level of consultation that the government has had with the Telecommunications Forum, the TCF. They say while formal consultation has not been undertaken, MB regularly engages with the telcos, and as such, these issues have considered in this RIS have been widely canvassed. MB has monthly meetings with the New Zealand Telecommunications Forum, which represents levy payers and others in the industry. Point 51, Mr Speaker, the intention to continue the levy at its current level was communicated openly during the election campaign, and that intent. So from that regulatory impact statement, Mr Speaker, you would think that the telcos know, they're pretty okay with that. The TCF has been informed, they've got no problem, Mr Speaker, with this bill and the implications of it. But lo and behold, Mr Speaker, not only has Spark put a press release out today, the Telecommunications Forum has put a press release out this afternoon as this bill makes its way through under urgency through this House. And Jeff Thorne, the chief executive of the TCF, says this bill has been introduced under urgency and doing so avoids any public debate. We agree with him on that. This is a proposal which has not been the subject of any consultation, but the RIS said there was consultation, and which has avoided the usual scrutiny that would apply to government spending, which we do agree with here, Mr Speaker. This bill is being pushed through under urgency, and we would ask why. If, as the Minister says, this has been signposted, if the Minister says there's been consultation with the TCF, that doesn't necessarily look like it was the case. Mr Speaker, the press release from the Telecommunications Forum goes on to say the bill extends a tax, which to date has not been explicitly recovered from consumers. So the TCF themselves say, well, in the past we haven't got this money from consumers. So, Mr Speaker, the assertion from the other side of the House that this isn't going to hit consumers, from this perspective, Spark has said that they're going to put up their prices. The TCF says, well, we haven't done this in the past, Mr Speaker, so someone's going to pay. And it's not the government, and this government said there are no new taxes, but when it introduces or continues this levy, Mr Speaker, someone does have to pay, and it is the broadband users of New Zealand. I'd like to reiterate, we have no problem with rolling broadband out further into rural areas. It's a great idea. But the $300 million that has been spent so far, we don't have any idea of how effective it is. And before we spend another $150 million, we don't think we should be rushing this through under urgency to make sure we're going to get good value for money. That's why we're opposing this. This government just wants to throw money around, another $150 million, without knowing how effective the first tranche of the RBI has been. We don't think that's on.
The Honourable